We are a young couple living full-time.
Real talk.
Hey, you've seen some happy, awesome, fun moments of our trip and getting ready for the baby, but intermittently we've had a lot going on, and we kind of just want to fill you in and...
It's not all bubbles and sunshine.
I guess rewind.
Right at 8 months, Brittany was 8 months pregnant, and I got laid off from my job and subsequently injured myself while snowboarding and had to go straight into surgery. So I literally went into surgery, and then the next week was jobless. That's kind of where we started. Actually, that's right around the first video too. It was like a couple weeks before it.
Yeah. And I was extremely frustrated and terrified that he wasn't gonna be able to help me do anything because he has one arm.
Word of advice to all you men out there with expecting mothers, wives, whatever, girlfriends, partners: try not to injure yourself in the last month of their pregnancy. It's a little bit strenuous. It was a challenge, to say the least.
Financially, it was a little bit of a struggle, getting laid off and just kind of figuring out, because we'd already planned to do this whole trip across the country and stay on the East Coast, and you need money to do all those things. So it was like a little bit of a...
So basically, the way we funded it is by selling everything, literally. Sold my truck, my pride and joy, which funded a big chunk of it, but we also sold other little things here and there, and Brittany had done a good job of saving up too, so that's where we got the funding to start all this.
Yeah, before we got on the road, we had some insurance mishaps with our son, and he was born on a weekend, and so we couldn't get him some doctor thing, some snip, we couldn't, there's just all these medical things that took longer than expected and delayed us leaving Oregon. And then once we did finally leave Oregon, we had to cut our drive a little bit short as well. So it kind of was just like a little bit of a rush. And then we get to New York and we kind of start to enjoy.
Yeah, we get settled at Nana's, and it's looking good and we're happy. And then I've known, so for a while now, my father had prostate cancer when he was in his 50s, and it came back 4 different times, and he got rid of it. They did radiation, he went on a diet, and it went away. Well, fast forward 10 years, and it came back. He had to get, it was 3 years ago, he had to get his 3 lower vertebrae fused together, and then when they did that surgery, the prostate cancer just kind of erupted in his body. It went to his bones, went to his liver, kidneys, you name it. Like basically his entire core, there were traces of prostate cancer. And since then it's grown, and particularly the liver has been the biggest problem. So now we're at the point where they said roughly around half of the liver is non-functioning, and tumors are growing. So we've been kind of keeping an eye on Dad, and a big part of this trip was going to be spending time with him and my mom and my dad, and help them out as they go through chemo and doctors and everything else.
However, we were planning on staying a few weeks in New York, doing some of my maternity leave with my family, and then going down to his parents. But we got a phone call kind of saying,
last week,
you need to come now, things are getting a lot worse.
Yeah, so last week Dad was in the hospital for about 6 days. He was running a fever every single day, had some type of an infection. They weren't sure exactly what it was, and it didn't look good for him last week. So we, with having Jude, it's important to me that Jude got to hang out and spend some time with the man that he's named after. So
we drove back from Vermont, and within 6 hours,
we got the call, of course, 6 miles from the Canadian border to Joe and Anna's in Vermont, literally the highest place we could get to. And then we get the phone call hey, you should come home.
So we pack up everything, say goodbye to my family, which I am so glad we're down here, and we need to be here for our other side of our family. But it was a little hard for me. I was just a little postpartum, emotional, very hormonal, and just feeling like I was really going to miss my family. And so it was a little bit of a rocky pack-up drive.
And then not to mention, we get here and we find out the baby and Brittany can't be at the hospital because of the germs. and infectious diseases.
So we really couldn't even introduce the baby and his dad for the first...
Literally the first 2 days, like we get there, we drive through the morning, we left at like the butt crack of dawn, and we get there super early in the morning, and I'm like running over to the hospital with my family, and I'm like, all right, Brittany, you're on your own. It was the first time she got left with the baby too, so.
It was just like a couple long days, just like alone in the RV with the, you know, a newborn, which I'm capable of handling, of course, but it was just in a new place all alone, and it was just kind of like, it's a little tough. But then we also, another little piece to the puzzle is we had to, after being here for 5 days, we needed to make a decision whether to drive back to New York for the weekend or not, because it was my sister's bridal shower, and I am the maid of honor, and I had a big part in planning it and getting it all together and doing the invitations and everything, and it was kind of like heartbreaking to think that I might not have gotten to be there for her for this big event in our family, our first wedding in our immediate family. And so ultimately his dad came home from the hospital
on Friday.
We drove over, introduced him to the baby, spent a couple hours, drove 6 hours to New York Friday night, did the wedding shower Saturday morning, spent time with my family on Saturday, and drove back to Maryland on Sunday.
Bada bing, bada boom.
It's been a little crazy.
But now we're back in Ocean City, and we're at least settled. We got a beautiful spot where the RV's parked, which is nice. Dad has been out of the hospital, which is great. And now today he runs his first treatment of chemo. He went through chemo once before, did fine, so fingers crossed, and hopefully he does well with this one and we can kick some cancer's ass. But of course, on the day of chemo, when we're really trying to be there with Dad and Mom and everybody else, the dog,
whole nose
all of a sudden she looked at me and looked at her, and it looked like a spider bite or something. There was all these bumps and this raised area over her snout, and I was like, what the heck is that? So we looked into it, and it looks like it could be something to do with the sun. She got severely sunburned or something, and it's blistering, bleeding, it's gnarly.
We don't know, but...
So we're going to the vet before we go to chemo today. So
baby just stopped screaming, so that's a plus.
Yep, baby just stopped.
So it's just life kind of comes at you all at once.
This is also part of the reason why these videos aren't coming out on Sundays.
That was another thing we were going to talk about. Yeah, so we kind of had this really great, ambitious goal to get the videos out every Sunday. And though we have still gotten a video every week, it has been not the same day, and so...
We're fighting to get back into track here. It's just like...
we just had a lot of setbacks, and it's...
Well, he was born on a Saturday.
So that initial video getting made the next day was not going to happen.
And then that just immediately pushed us back. And then we did the drive, and it's when we were, hustling back, it's like, where do I find time? I need an extra couple hours in the day to make the video.
But we do appreciate those of you who are still watching and bearing with us, because we do have intentions to get it back on track, and
hopefully by this Sunday, as long as we have a relatively uneventful week, we'll get back on track. So
we're new to this, so we're figuring it out as we go. We will see you this week.